This is Actar's Reviews, from anime to figures and beyond. Hey, this is Actar and welcome to another episode of Actar's Figure Reviews. In my Digimon Analyzer review, I said I have yet to finish watching Savers. Well, since that review, I have marathoned the entire series and I have to say that I actually really enjoyed it. I can't believe what I've been missing out on all these years. Seriously, I got hooked on the characters and story after the first arc, and it was smooth sailing all the way to the finish. I did not expect the series to delve that deeply into the mythos of the Digimon world, and I loved how they handled the Digimon-human relationships, especially when perceived through the eyes of the various characters. So, now that I've officially fallen hook, line and sinker for the series, where do I go from here? Well, buy the merchandise, of course, and no Digimon series would be complete without the transforming toys. But here is where we hit a little snag. For you see, there were only 3 figures released in Japan in the Digimon Savers line of transforming toys. We have ShineGreymon to RiseGreymon, we have Galgamon to MahaGalgamon, and Peckmon to Yatagaramon. There were actually supposed to be 6 figures in total, with the final 3 warp evolving figures getting cancelled due to poor toy sales. We have Agumon to ShineGreymon, Gaomon to Mirage Galgamon, and Kudamon to Chirinmon. However, all is not lost as Bandai of Korea pushed forward with the production and all 6 figures were released in Korea to tie in with the Korean airing of the series. Because of this, the latter 3 figures are extremely rare and sought after by fans the world over. Thanks to a tip on Facebook, I happened to get my hands on the one that I wanted the most. Warp Evolving Agumon to ShineGreymon. The box is surprisingly the same as the ones used in the US, save for all the text being in Korean. On the front, we have a big window display showing off the figure inside, the flap on the top featuring the transformation process, and the sides and the back showing off all the other figures and products in the line. So let's open this up and take a look at the figure inside. In addition to an instruction sheet, we get a plate that interacts with the Digivice IC. Now, I don't own a Digivice IC, so I can't show you guys how this works, but evidently it gives you a random item. Onto the figure. Starting off with the Agumon mode, to tackle the elephant in the room, this Agumon mode has proportion issues. First off, the head is way too small for the body. Coupled with the fact that the back of the head doesn't extend over his back, this Agumon mode looks a lot more like a traditional dinosaur than what he looks like in the show. Another proportion issue has to do with the legs. They are far too long. Well, alright, that's not entirely true. You see, you can technically collapse his legs all the way into his body. However, by doing so, the legs bend the spikes that make up ShineGreymon's signature shoulder pads. Yes, they are made of soft plastic and yes, they are designed to bend, but leaving him like this for long periods of time will cause the spikes to warp. To avoid that, I just don't collapse his legs all the way, and to be fair, he looks perfectly fine to me. Speaking of spikes, that brings us to the kibble. Turning him around, we see a mass of ShineGreymon parts sticking out from behind him. To give credit where credit is due, this is far from having an entire alt mode hanging off his back, and he looks pretty decent from the front. And just like the original Agumon figure, you do have some alt mode kibble on the underside of his claws. The sculpting and painting details are top notch, the signature braces on his forearms and separately painted belt buckles being just a taste of what's to come. Maybe the top eyelid shadow is just a little bit too thick, but that's more of a nitpick than anything else. Articulation wise, it's basic but decent enough. Something that I was pleasantly surprised by is how well the arms pose. Despite being on a single ball joint, in and out, forwards and backwards and even side to side, it's pretty much unhindered. The same goes for the elbow joint. It's a beautiful 90 degrees. There is also a swivel joint in the elbow. The legs, however, leave a little bit more to be desired. The legs are on a ball joint that are on a hinge joint. However, they are limited due to the surrounding panels and parts. Due to the transformation, they have no knee joint, and as for the feet, they can only swivel from side to side, and the claws can move up and down. All in all, because of how short the legs are, while you can pose Agumon's legs, your options are pretty limited. Comparing him to everyone's favorite Warp Evolving Agumon to ShineGreymon Figure, we see that while the Savers Agumon is larger, the Adventures Agumon manages to pull off a more convincing and cohesive Agumon mode with better proportions, articulation, and practically zero kibble. But before we can fully pass judgment on this figure, let's take a look at its evolved form. Digiso Charge Overdrive! We first start off by lifting up Agumon's back. We then split the entire head and back section, pull the arms away from the body to make more room, and slide the two shell pieces to the front. Split open Agumon's belly, and rotate the shell pieces on this hinge. Pull down the tail, and rotate these head and back plates to line up with these belly plates. Peg the belly plates into the back plates via these two pegs and these two holes. And now you have formed ShineGreymon's wings. Flip his head down and peg it into place and rotate it around. Take the two shoulder pads and rotate them up into position, and they lock in place. Moving on to the arms, we bend them the other way around, open up these shell pieces, pull the arms away from the shell pieces, rotate the shell pieces around, and close and collapse the entire assembly back into place. We do the same for the other side. Last but not least, we flip up the thighs, fold out the legs, they lock in two places, close the thighs back up, and fold out ShineGreymon's claws while folding in the Agumons. Oh yeah, being another transforming Agumon figure, it would have been easy for them to have simply reused the transformation scheme from the original figure. However, as you have seen, that was not the case. Aside from the pegging in of the wings, the transformation is unique, fun, and intuitive. What we end up with is a phenomenal looking ShineGreymon mode. In fact, this is where the figure truly shines. Did you see what I did there? Anyways, the paint job and sculpting is just glorious, as in glorious burst, get it? Okay, I apologize for that one. In all seriousness, pretty much every single detail on the show's model is recreated here, save for maybe the unpainted black dots on his lower body. Everything's here. From the red and silver panel lining that runs across his entire body, to the accurately sculpted gauntlets and painted fists, to the tiny bit of red on the top of his ankle guards, to the tiny spikes on his tail. The wings have been intricately recreated with paint and a bit of sculpting alone. Because of this, the ShineGreymon mode looks nothing short of extravagant and imposing. Still, this mode does have its own fair share of issues. Regarding those wings, while I have to say that I really enjoy how the wings are formed from the various Agumon shell parts and how spectacular the paint job is, they don't do that good of a job of replicating the majesty of the on-screen wings. The shape, positioning, and color of the panels don't do the wings any justice. In addition to the yellow negative space, the 4 panel chunks make the wings more evocative of butterfly wings instead of segmented mechanical wings. Secondly, albeit a more minor complaint, I'm not too big of a fan of the hollow thighs. In terms of kibble, just like ShineGreymon, we have Agumon's face and body on his back. Agumon's claws can also be seen on the underside of ShineGreymon's forearms. This figure sadly doesn't come with any accessories, though the only one that could have been included would have been the Geogray sword. Honestly, while it would have been a great addition, it was pretty useless in the show anyways, so I'm not too broken up about it. I'm serious, the puns, they just write themselves. Moving on to articulation, it's excellent. Starting off with the wings, they are surprisingly extremely poseable, thanks to all of those ball and hinge joints. You can even fold them back if you wish, and there's even a double jointed hinge that you can play around with. His head is not on a ball joint, but it can swivel from side to side and look up and down, though you'll have to disconnect the head from the body to do so. The arms retain the exact same degree of freedom, including the 90-degree elbow joint, thanks to the design of his gauntlets. On top of that, ShineGreymon gets an extra wrist swivel. The legs are no longer as restricted as they were in Agumon mode, but they still have some difficulty moving forwards and backwards due to this back panel. Other than that, they are free to move up and down and side to side on this hinge and ball joint system. Technically speaking, you do have 2 knee joints on each leg, but they are supposed to remain locked in place to form a stable and cohesive leg. But they are there for you to use. His feet can once again swivel from left to right, and his claws can move up and down. Last but not least, his tail can be moved up and down as well. With that amount of possibility, you can get him to punch, charge up his glorious burst attack, or even get him in a fit of rage. Putting him side by side with WarGreymon, ShineGreymon is once again taller and far more imposing and resplendent. And because of how well the ShineGreymon mode is executed, I actually like this figure almost as much, if not as much, as WarGreymon. In conclusion, I can't help but love this figure. While it does have a lackluster Agumon mode, it's not just a WarGreymon clone, and the sheer splendor of the ShineGreymon mode more than makes up for it. So, the big question. Do I recommend you pick this figure up? If you're a fan of the series, can find this figure and aren't afraid of dropping big bucks on it, get it. In fact, if you were to only get one figure from the entire line, this is the figure that I would recommend you to get. Not only is it an excellent figure in its own right, it's a figure of one of the leader characters and does the job of representing the entire series. In fact, with this ShineGreymon figure, I can finally line up all of the leaders of the first 5 Digimon seasons together. Will I get to cross wars? Well, maybe in another 10 years. So, this is Zeka saying, 1 down and 5 to go. See you guys in the next episode.